Hello everybody, this is Retail Rundown, where I quickly go over the newest soloable board games to hit the retail market, at least where I live in the United States. If I miss a release you feel deserves attention, please give it a mention in the comments below. Let's start with a handful of solo games that I've recently made playthroughs for on the channel. First up is the Shackleton base expansion, Below, Within, Above. I recently made two videos, one of just the base game and the second with all the expansion materials added. I'll include links to everything in the description. In that latter video, I played with all three new corporations, Lunar City, Undermoon, and Zenith Works. I played with the new space agency, India, and I played with the extra bonus tokens. The main attraction of the expansion is definitely these three new corporations, and I really like those, especially Undermoon. Drilling down to open up rooms for extra income is satisfying, and it builds up nicely as the game progresses. I especially like thematically how you're causing damage to the surface as you dig. So you place out these fracture tokens, which make certain areas less valuable in different ways, but you can fix the fractures to gain reputation. You'll want to do this because the deeper you dig, the more reputation you lose each round. That push and pull really works well. Zenith Works is an interesting corporation, but not really for solo play. You really want to have more players to play with that one. And Lunar City was a nice, simple one to add, and it'll work nicely with any combination of corporations. So overall, I recommend this expansion if you enjoy the base game, but I don't think there's anything here that's going to change your mind about Shackleton's base if you didn't like it to begin with. Next is Nippon Zaibatsu. I'm a big fan of this game, and I have been ever since the first edition of Nippon. The cool thing about this new edition is that it includes a solo mode, and I made a sponsored playthrough video during its crowdfunding campaign. I should warn you that I've heard the rules have changed slightly in the final version. I haven't been able to play the final version yet. I will be playing it very soon because I'm going to be making a video this month along with the new expansion. That should be announced soon if it hasn't already, so stay tuned for that video. The solo mode is very simple to operate. It doesn't simulate playing against an actual opponent, but rather you just have this simple bot that is getting in your way, taking workers, and competing for influence on the map. Yes, you're trying to beat your high score, but you also have these random goals that you must complete by the end of the game in order to win. I think this simple solo system works really well, but I know a lot of players prefer an Atoma-style solo mode, so just be aware of that. The Lord of the Rings The Two Towers trick-taking game is the standalone sequel to the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, for which I recently made a video. Please check that out if you haven't. These games are cooperative trick-taking games similar to The Crew, but with an added optional narrative story to the gameplay. You'll unlock new characters and cards that introduce new gameplay elements as you move from chapter to chapter. The Two Towers follows directly from the previous game with chapters 19 through 36. The solo mode works really well, but it turns the game into more of a straightforward puzzle with a bit of push your luck. I personally prefer For Northwood for my solo trick-taking fix, but this is different enough that I enjoy having both. Moytura is an interesting area control fighting game where 1 to 2 players are struggling for control of ancient Ireland. The twist is there's a third opponent faction controlled by the game itself that is also competing for area and scoring points. Because of this bot system that's built into the main game, the publisher says that Moytura lends itself easily to solo and cooperative variants. I assume this means you'll have to operate 2 bot factions instead of just 1 when playing solo, which doesn't sound that bad. Overall, this game definitely reminds me of like a mini Cyclades, or Cyclades, however you pronounce it, just with the way that you select a deity to take actions each round. A solo mini Cyclades sounds really interesting to me, so I'm very excited for this one. Frosted Blooms is a tile drafting and tile placement game for 1 to 4 players that made the recommended list for the 2026 Kenner Spiel des Jahres Board Game Awards. I must admit, it's a little difficult to tell these tile placement games apart. A lot of them are starting to look quite similar. In Frosted Blooms, you create groups of flowers with certain features in order to fulfill objectives in order to score points. Also, if you create holes in your map, you can fill those with workers, barns, or windmills for end-game bonuses. The game only lasts 10 rounds and plays in about 20 minutes solo. With games like Cascadia, Harmonies, and Shallow Sea, along with microgames like Naturopolis, I personally don't feel the need to experience another simple solo tile layer. But this certainly looks like a nice one with a pleasant theme and beautiful artwork. Now I want to mention a bunch of games that were part of my most anticipated Solos of Essen 2025 video. Many of these games have been out in other countries or had small runs, but have just recently hit retail in larger numbers in the United States. Orloj, the Prague Astronomical Clock, is a medium to heavyweight Eurogame about the construction of a real medieval clock in Prague. Players take the role of master builders working to improve and upgrade the clock, and you do this primarily through worker placement. The clock works as a rondel of sorts that you can manipulate and place workers around to gain resources and take certain actions. It seems like an intriguing action selection mechanism that forces you to make difficult decisions. The production looks like one of the best of the year. If you told me that this was made by Roxley Games, I would believe you. That's how good it looks. I hope to make a playthrough of this one in the near future. Recall is a civilization strategy game from the designers of Revive. I made a full solo playthrough of Revive, so definitely go check that out. I didn't jump on this game initially because Recall seemed too similar to Revive, but I've done a little bit more research and it appears to be a very different game. I know the card play of Revive is not in Recall, so that alone seems like enough of a difference, despite some of the surface level similarities. Recall is another game I'd like to make a video for sooner rather than later. Miskatonic Tales Journey to Innsmouth is a cooperative horror adventure game set in the same cinematic universe as the Call of Cthulhu TTRPG. Apparently the box will contain 3 standalone sandbox scenarios that you can play individually or together as a campaign. I was initially interested in this one because of 2 words in the description: choices matter. Anytime a game makes this claim, I'm intrigued, and often I end up disappointed. Will this be some kind of Arkham Horror the card game with more storytelling and some actual deduction? Given the mixed reviews this game has received on BGG, I'm concerned. Some commenters have complained about a bad rulebook, terrible writing, and a lack of real meaningful choices. Obviously, I'll have to play it myself to know for sure, but my enthusiasm has waned. In Philharmonix, players take the role of a space orchestra manager trying to become the most celebrated orchestra in the galaxy. You'll need to recruit the greatest musicians you can and train them so that they can perform their best. Then you'll send your orchestra to gigs on other planets, trying to make the sponsors of the concerts happy. You accomplish this with a combination of worker placement and action points. It sounds like you have a limited number of action points each round, and actions can cost more if the worker placement spot is occupied. Reading the description reminds me a little bit of The Gallerist. I also think it just looks amazing on the table. I think I'm going to end this rundown with just a couple of notable expansions. Mage Knight the Apocalypse Dragon contains a new playable Mage Knight, Coral, who wants revenge on the Apocalypse cult. There's side quests and missions you can engage in, as well as new enemies to fight, including a 5-headed Apocalypse Dragon, as seen on the cover. The Apocalypse Dragon expansion also contains a story-driven campaign mode that features new scenarios and many more surprises. The Legends expansion for Heat Pedal to the Metal adds legend cards for the expansion cards, but also smarter, faster, and tougher legends. As the publisher describes, they'll slipstream, draft, clear corners with precision, and unleash powerful new abilities that keep every race unpredictable. They will also have difficulty settings, so you can make the race as hard as you want. I thought the base game system was great, but this sounds like it might improve the solo game, as long as controlling the bot doesn't become too complex. And there you go, a bunch of new soloable games hitting retail. Which ones did I miss? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd like to thank all the financial supporters of Totally Tabled, including the Totally Radical Hextra, John Kohler, Scott Myers, Kevin Qualls, and Jay Satterwhite, as well as the Totally Bodacious Brandon. If you're interested in becoming a member, you can join on YouTube or my Patreon at www.patreon.com/totallytabled. You'll gain access to my new exclusive podcast, Table Talk, as well as unboxing videos and whatever extra stuff I come up with. As always, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.